Hi everyone. In this video I am going to explain two keywords, this and super. Let us create a student class. Just we will take one instance variable. Create a constructor. Right click, generate getter setters, name. We will create another constructor which takes let us create main method. We will create an instance of student class. We will print out the name. Since we did not assign a name to it, it will be null. By default, reference types will be null. So we have to set the name. One dot set name, given some name of the student, right? And now we will print it again. So we have assigned Hari, and so that is printed. But if we have many properties, instance variables, and instead of calling setter methods, we can create a constructor which takes argument. Instead of calling setter methods, create a constructor with take one argument, and you have to pass the name at runtime to this constructor, and so constructor will assign that name to the instance. Okay, your name. So assign the one which you passed to the instance variable. So let us run this. So what we have to do, we have to pass the name while creating the constructor. So what happens is it will call the constructor with one argument. Okay, now run this. Instead of calling the setter method, we are calling the constructor with an argument. So but what will happen if instance variable, in this case the local variable is different from instance variable, but if this is same as this one, then can you see I am passing Hari, and now I am printing again. What will happen? Check. Can you see? Null. The value which you have passed is not assigned to this instance, because this is equal to assigning name to itself. This statement is assigning the value to itself, not to the name in the student. This statement is not assigning the value which you passed at runtime to the instance variable. This statement assigning the value to itself, it is not assigning to instance variable. So to remove this confusion, we have to say this dot name. Since names are same, this creates a problem. So what you have to say is, this means current object. The constructor is creating on which object? Right now the student, this constructor will create an object, right? So this means the object which we have created through this constructor. So this refers to current object. So this dot name means when you call the constructor, it will create an object in the memory, right? So this means this dot name is the name in the object which you are created in the memory, not the name. This is the local variable. So you are saying like this, you are creating an object in the memory, right? So this dot name is the name in the object you are creating. Assign the name which you are passing at runtime to the name in the object you constructed in the memory. So this will resolve the problems when you have instance variable and local variable same name. Okay, now run. Can you see? So what will happen when you say this dot name, the name in the object you are creating. So this is one use of this. Okay, understand? And another use of this is, see, by default, even if you write or not, if you don't write super, compiler will insert this statement. Super means when you create student, if there is any super class, that will get called automatically. Let us create new class, super class. Let us take variable, create a instance variable, private string super pro. Okay, student will extend this super class. Okay, what will happen is, even if you don't write this, let us add one debug statement here. System.out.println in super class. This is the constructor of super class. Okay, let us see the output. Let us see, observe carefully the output. Can you see? In super class, I am in subclass. Actually, when we call the constructor with one argument, this line should be printed, right? But can you see, in super class, that means the control went to this constructor. How the control went to super class? That means if you don't write, Okay, compiler will add this code. So in every constructor, even if you write it or not, the first line will be super. If you don't write it, compiler will add this line. Okay, compiler will add this line. Understand? That is the reason when you call the constructor with one argument, since there is a super means super will call the constructor in the super class. Okay, this is the constructor in the super class. Super, when you say super in subclass, it calls the constructor in the super class. Got it? So always remember, the first line will be called to the constructor in the superclass, and there is okay, this is one use of super, to call the constructor. Suppose if you have a constructor with two arguments, string name in superclass one arg constructor, you can call like this also, super name. So now see, we will print this name also. Can you see? In superclass one arg constructor. So when you say super and argument, it will try to match the constructor with one argument. So if you don't specify argument, then super will call the no argument constructor. If you provide the argument, it will try to call the constructor with arguments. This is the use of super. Okay, even if you don't write, compiler will add super, so it will call the one without arguments. By default, compiler inserts super without argument. That means it will always call the constructor in superclass without arguments. If you want to call the constructor in the superclass with arguments, you have to write the code. Okay, this is the use of super. And now we will see, suppose if see, when you extend the superclass, the super prop will be inherited by the student, right? We will print that value. System dot out dot println of super prop is one dot get super prop. Can you see what way it will be? Super prop is null because you did not assign the value to the property instance variable in the superclass. That is the reason super prop is null. So you have to assign. What we will do in constructor, we can assign it super of name, right? I can assign subprop is equal to name. Now we will see. So what we are doing, we are just in the student will inherit the super property, right? So when you say super name. When you don't give, by default it will be null. So what I am doing, while creating the student constructor, I am assigning the value. I am constructing the super class also. So this will call the super class constructor, and whatever the value you pass to the super class constructor, that will be assigned to the super class property. So now we will run it. Now we will run it again. Can you see null will become Hari, because we are calling super class constructor using super. Okay, now instead of calling here, you can do like this also. You can say super prop is equal to name. Actually, since super property is private, we cannot call like that. So you can say set we can call like this of name. Okay, previously we are calling the super with the argument, and the super class will assign the value. Now I am directly assigning through setter method. We will run it again. Can you see? Hari is assigned to super class, but let us see if I make it public. Let us see public. If I make it public, then in the student I can access like this. Subprop is equal to name. Okay, Hari is assigned. But what can be the problem is, suppose if there is a property subprop in subclass also. So there is a property called superprop in subclass, and so both superclass and subclass are having the same name, a property with the same name. So when you assign, can you see now? We will rerun. Now it will become null, because when you say super property, it will always take this one, not the one in the super class. Okay, when there is a same property in superclass and subclass, and if you use that property in subclass, it will always refer to the property in the subclass, because it hides the one which you define in the superclass. So what you have to do is, if you have to say super dot. When you say super dot, now can you see value is assigned. Okay, just like this, when local variable and instance variable are same, we will use this dot name, right, to differentiate the instance property and the local variable. In the same way, when you have the same property in superclass and subclass, and if you want to refer the superclass property in subclass, you have to say super dot. Then this statement will assign the name to the super property in superclass. That is another use of. So far what we have seen, two uses of super. One is to call the, when you say super, it will call the constructor in the super. So one use of super keyword is to call the constructor in the superclass, and another is when you have same name in superclass and subclass, to specifically say that, hey, I want to access the property in the superclass, then you will say super dot. So super dot super property means we are referring to the super property in the super class. This is another use of super, and we have already seen the use of this. And as I said, the first call, even if you don't write, see, even if you don't write, compiler will insert like this. This will be automatically inserted. If you don't write, compiler will insert. So always the first line will be super. If you don't write, compiler will insert. The first line can be another one also. You can say this and pass some XYZ. So the first line should be super or this with argument. See, if you don't write super as a first line, compiler will insert. But can you see, earlier the usage is where this is a second usage of this. When you say this of with argument, then what will happen is, when you say super of XYZ, it will call the constructor in the super class with one argument. When you say this with argument, this will call the constructor with argument in the same class. This of XYZ means this will call this constructor in the same class. If you say super, this will call the constructor in the super class. If you say this with argument, it will always call the constructor with the argument. If there is a constructor with the two arguments, and if you say this, and if you provide two arguments, that will call the constructor in the same class with two arguments. So always remember, the first line of the constructor should be super or this constructor or this keyword with a call to the constructor in the same class. Remember. Okay, the first line should be call to super class constructor or call to constructor in same class, this of argument. Call to super class, how will you will perform? Super or super with argument. So remember this, even if you don't write. Let us see, let us create another superclass. New class ABC, public ABC, system.out.println, I am in ABC constructor. Okay, what will superclass? I am extends ABC. Okay, run as Java application. Can you see, when you create student, first what will happen? This will call the constructor in student, right? So this called this one. So as I said, by default compiler will add this line. So this super will call the constructor, since student extended super class, so super will call the constructor in the super class. So that's why the control went to super class. But as I said, in every constructor, even if you don't write, the constructor will add this line. So now, since superclass extended ABC, this line, even if you don't add, this line will be added by the compiler. So this called the constructor in its superclass. So ABC is the superclass of superclass, right? So the constructor, this will get executed first, then control will return to here, this line, and these will be performed, and then control will come to, sorry, first the control will went to the top level constructor, then it returns to here, I mean here, and then it will return to students, like this. If you have a chain of superclasses, the control will go to the top level superclass. So since student extended superclass extended ABC, so first ABC constructor will run, next student will run, sorry, first ABC constructor will run, next superclass will run, next student will. Suppose if ABC extended FHG, then what will happen? FHG first runs, ABC next, superclass next, student next. That is the use of, this is the advantage. So remember, even if you don't write, in every constructor, if you don't write, the first line will be added is super. But see, in this constructor, if you don't write this, then compiler will add super. But since you have added this, means this with arguments, means this will call the constructor with argument. So in every constructor, the first line should be either super or this. Hope you understand. Thank you.